Our next lady speaker has travelled all the way from Cambridge for us, and we're very honoured to have here tonight. She is Marta from the Linux Foundation. She's Director of Ecosystem for Hyperledger, and she's going to talk to us about blockchain, I think. And she's been in the industry for 5 years, that's pretty much most of the time.
They say that you should count blockchain years like donkey years, so it's almost like 40 years now. So a bit about me. This talk will be more about blockchain and why should you care, and give you some resources about learning more, but not really about me that much. I'm Director of Ecosystem for Hyperledger, which is the Linux Foundation project on blockchain and enterprise blockchain. I'll talk a bit about that later on. I do have a PhD in computer security and privacy, so yes, I can code. No, I don't code anymore. That is, I do miss it. But if I wanted, I probably could do more of it. And I very much agree with everything that was said. That was my story. I always chose people that I wanted to work with and topics that seemed interesting. But the first time I ended up, I started working in blockchain was for Blockstream. And I basically met a bunch of people during lunch, and I was like mind blown by them. I was like, I just want to spend the rest of my life just with you. Whatever you want me to do, I'll just do it. And then they offered me a job, and I was like, okay, so you're not just a crazy bunch of weirdos talking about cryptocurrency. There's something into it. And today, 4 years later, 5 years later, I'm with Hyperledger. And I still love the other people, but just we disagreed on some of the topics around cryptocurrencies. So quickly, blockchain is everywhere now. You hear about blockchain, you breathe blockchain, you eat blockchain, everything is on blockchain, with blockchain, about blockchain. We today understand very well that blockchain is not cryptocurrency. It's quite the opposite. Blockchain encompasses both distributed ledgers and smart contracts. So I'm assuming, how many of you know about blockchain, know what blockchain is? Okay, yeah, everybody. So just quickly, I like to do those two things because it puts people on the same slide page. It is an append-only system that records or logs transactions being exchange of data, exchange of value, exchange of tokens, assets, whatever. But logs the events, not the content of the events. That's kind of the difference between those two. And everyone shares the ledgers, no single entity maintains it, and the whole network validates it. So that's kind of the power of the distributed ledger. And obviously, from a business perspective, all businesses need to know that their ledger contains the same information as their competitors or people that they exchange information with. So that's why we need some kind of a method of agreeing on what goes on that ledger. On the other hand, smart contracts are, neither smart nor contracts. They are a piece of code that is, any kind of complex program that is stored and executed on the blockchain. They are really cool. We still don't know how to work on them well. Today, most companies will actually write a smart contract for you, but will not take responsibility for what happens once that smart contract is executed, which tells you a bit about how little we know about them. And I think that when it comes to regulation, I think we'll see more regulation on side of how do people reconcile after smart contracts go poorly, rather than can you use a blockchain in your business. So blockchain I don't think will ever be regulated, but smart contracts should. So ledgers are wonderful, they are easily auditable, the distributed consensus eliminates costly and inefficient reconciliation processes. And there is no central repository, so it means that they are just very hard to break. This is my favorite slide probably, because it gives you a pointer to what to do next. If you learn those phrases and topics by heart or understand them, you will be able to handle a fairly informed conversation with anyone about blockchain, and you will seem like an expert in blockchain. So I've spent some time figuring out which ones are important. One thing that I want to focus on is the permissioning, so the last word here, because there is a spectrum of blockchains. And I know that this might be controversial, because some people say that the only blockchain is the permissionless public blockchain and no other system is valuable. I like to look at it, from a computer science background as a read and write access. So when we talk about permissioned versus permissionless blockchains, this is about who can access the blockchain. So who can put information on a blockchain on the network. If we talk about private versus public blockchains, that's about who can read from that blockchain, who has visibility into what is happening on a blockchain. And there is a spectrum, same as with any computer files. If we talk about the cryptocurrencies, obviously you want to have a permissionless public network because you want as many people as possible to use that cryptocurrency, put information there and read. On the other hand, if we talk about systems that are highly sensitive, like medical records, like information exchange between banks and so on, that means that we really need a system that is closed, where only certain people have access to that network or form that network, and only certain people can read from that network. So in case of medical records, this will be your doctors and your nurses, and then read access would be same people plus you probably. On the other hand, when we talk about the permissioned public network, this is the one that I think is very interesting space because it allows us to, it's like a gateway drug to blockchain, I think. It allows you to put information on the blockchain by entities that we naturally trust. So for instance, when it comes to university degrees, this would be your professor's university and so on. But anybody should be able to verify what is your degree and do you actually hold that degree from that university, or do you actually own that house? So this is a very neat way of really improving the way that business processes work today with fairly low investment. So why business blockchain technologies? Because all over the global markets, there are ledgers that organizations and individuals must trust. And blockchain is just a technology. It is a very powerful tool, but it is not a solution. And I think this is a very big difference because we tend to think that blockchain is this magical fairy dust that we can sprinkle on something and all of a sudden it will solve our problems. Blockchain will not order your dinner and will not get you a date. It might improve the dating portal that you're using. And it may feel very different. This space is a bit insane. There are so many companies popping up. And the interesting thing about that is that 90% of blockchain experiments will fail, according to studies that have been done up until now. And in fact, 92% of blockchain solutions from 2016 no longer exist. Nobody is sustaining them. That shows how much of a hype we were in. I think it's getting much better. So that's where Linux Foundation kind of came 3 years ago, and 2016. Linux Foundation is devoted to creating a shared sustainable ecosystem around open source projects. We basically bring enterprises and the open source community together to work on frameworks and tools in a specific domain. So what started off with a core Linux today is over 70 projects. Some of them being very big ones like Node.js or Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Some of them are much smaller, like automotive grade Linux that fairly no one knows about, or NF Linux or Ajax, really cool projects, but small ones. And that's where Hyperledger also comes. And I'll skip the video for the time's sake, but we are an open source collaborative effort to advance cross-industry blockchain technologies. We are hosted by the Linux Foundation, and everything in Hyperledger is open source. And I mean really open source. Like, you can join our special interest groups, you can join our working groups, and you don't have to ask anybody's permission. So if tomorrow you decide that you want to learn about healthcare and blockchain, just go on hyperledger.org and you'll find all information about that. If you're interested in financial services, you can join the calls. You don't have to email me. I mean, I'll be very happy if you email me, but you don't need anybody's permission. Same with downloading the code, contributing to the code bases, and so on and so forth. And we are a global collaboration. Today our members span across all the global markets. We have over 270 enterprise members. And we are really, really big. So we have a greenhouse architecture, which means that we welcome anybody with a seed of idea that wants to plant in our community. And if the community wants to foster that plant, it will bloom into something hopefully beautiful where everybody can benefit from the fruits of that beautiful plant. On the other hand, if people don't think that this is a great idea, the plant will die. And that's also fine. That's what happens to projects. So today we have 6 different frameworks and 6 different tools. I won't spend time discussing all of them, but if you're interested in learning more, just come and ask me afterwards. Okay, I'll talk about Ursa, because Ursa is our shared cryptographic library, and that's like my passion. It's a really cool framework. Helps to apply cryptographic tools to not only Hyperledger frameworks, but also outside. So this and Quilt and Burrow are our kind of bridges to the external community, to the Ethereum community, to the Corda community, and so on. I'll skip that. Yeah, we have 3 production releases. I think this is the first time I'm saying 3 instead of 2, because Hyperledger Sawtooth and Hyperledger are in production, and as of earlier this week, also Hyperledger Iroha is in production, so 1.0. Okay, I will skip that slide. It was more kind of, why do you care? If you build a trust network, so you have a lot of devices, a lot of participants, a lot of technologies, blockchain makes sense. It also makes sense if you need a transparency network. So you need auditability, you don't want to remove the data. And you will need audits. Also when you value customer experience, because with transparency, customer experience really increases. And if you only accept that you have to build a solution around blockchain rather than stick a blockchain instead of your legacy system, you're good to go. Many people just say, oh, I have this system and I'll replace a certain element of it with a blockchain and it'll work. It won't work. Blockchain brings its own challenges and its own problems, as well as its own benefits. This is very interesting. It comes from one of our members. They tried evaluating why business, or what is the impact of business blockchain onto their business, and through all of those kind of elements like the holistic view, the transparency, simplification of means that it decreases the costs of operation. Speed also is increased. That's one that also I'm challenged on. But if you think about today's systems, where if you try to verify any information or get access to any information, it basically goes through 4 departments that have to sign off on it. Like if you want to hire a vendor into your company, it takes about 2 weeks to 4 weeks time. With blockchain, because there's a holistic view and everybody can access it, sure, you know, in worst case Bitcoin scenario, you'll have to wait an hour. What is an hour compared to 4 weeks? So maybe entering information to database is faster, but actually using it on an ongoing basis, it's much slower. So now, if you want to know more, come talk to me. Also, we have 2 free of charge open source online courses that you can take. They're at your own pace, and they will take you from high level blockchain to some more low level things, including actually teaching you how to implement if you're interested in that. There is one that is also kind of the business oriented one from Linux Foundation. We also have administrator certifications. So for those of you who are devs and want to get professional certification, we have administration certification. We are planning to launch also developer certs, but that will come later this year. As I said, your gateway drug to Hyperledger is probably the special interest groups, because that's where we involve people that are passionate about a certain industry, and we don't require technical knowledge. It is a space for people to exchange knowledge, educate each other. So we have presentations on ongoing basis. All groups meet every 2 weeks, roughly. We are looking for people who are also interested in supply chain. If you're interested in supply chain, then let me know. So yeah, that's it. I'm not sure if I ran out of time or not, but I was trying to be brief. That's me.
Big round of applause for Marta. Very
Thank you.
presentation. Thank you.